Greetings, everyone. Welcome to TSNN's first webinar in 2013. We will continue to deliver complimentary monthly webinars throughout the year. We are committed to offering valuable content, as you know, on a monthly basis to our subscribers. To check and see what new webinars are on the schedule, just visit tsnn.com and click the webinar tab at the top of our site. You will also find a rich archive of previously recorded webinars there. Now, allow me to thank our sponsor today, OnStream Media. They continue to help us deliver these educational topics to you. All of our webinars are brought to you by OnStream Media, the leader in media, webinar, and webcasting services. Their technology can help you get better results for your own organization. OnStream's virtual event solutions can connect you with colleagues and customers, extend the value of your events, and boost profits. Webinars and webcasts provide a platform for branded virtual events that can enhance the value of a live show or operate as single revenue-generating events. For a free demo and to learn more about how OnStream webinars and webcasts bring measurable ROI, visit onstreammedia.com. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Michelle Bruno, Principal of Bruno Group Signature Events. Michelle is a longtime partner of TSNN and is a former meeting planner and exhibition organizer who writes and blogs for leading meetings and exhibition industry publications, including TSNN. With experience in face-to-face meetings as a supplier, organizer, and professional writer, she has the experience and the insight to chronicle emerging technologies and their impact on meetings, conferences, and exhibitions. She develops content marketing strategies that drive lead generation campaigns for live event organizers, suppliers, and technology companies, and she's always a popular speaker for us. So enjoy this fun topic on gamification. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Arlene. I am so thrilled to be able to moderate this distinguished panel. We have two panelists, yay for women. First of all, we have Mary Reynolds-Kane, who is Director of Online Marketing for the Professional Convention Management Association, which many of us know as PCMA. She is responsible for many of PCMA's online initiatives, including virtual and hybrid events, social media, the Convening Leaders website and mobile app, and the PCMA website as it relates to strategy, branding, content, and design. Our second panelist, Faye Lacoste, is the Director of K-12 Events and Associations at Pearson, the world's leading education company. She has over 19 years of experience in the education publishing industry with a focus on marketing, copywriting, project management, conferences and events, and corporate communications. A graduate of Stanford University with a BS in Communications and a minor in Graphic Design, Faye is currently pursuing her MBA at Babson College in Wellesley, Massachusetts. So I am thrilled to welcome both of you today to our webinar. It's wonderful to have someone from both the association side and the corporate side so we can get insight from sort of both directions. So our first question to you, Mary, is to describe the game, describe the event during which you deployed the game. I know it was PCMA Convening Leaders, but for those of you, of us in the audience that weren't there, maybe describe it a little bit.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome, and thanks for joining us. It actually just ended on January 16th, so I might be a little scatterbrained still, so please excuse how that happened. But it's a meeting of more than 3,500 senior-level meeting planners, so there was a lot of interest in gaming and how they could bring it back to their conferences. And they have definitely different levels of technology savviness, so it made it a little bit interesting to plan the game.
So, Faye, your event was a little bit different. Tell us about it.
Yeah, my event was actually our largest internal event for Pearson. It's our annual sales meeting for the kindergarten through 12th grade publishing arm of Pearson. We actually completed that event during the first week of January of this year. It's for 1,200 people in our sales and marketing teams. And like Mary mentioned, our audience is very, very well-versed in educational trends, of which gamification is a huge new trend. And it's one of the reasons why we wanted to incorporate that into our program. However, we did have some folks that were not extremely tech-savvy or really had an awareness of different game strategies or how gaming could actually make the event itself more engaging.
So, Mary, did you have any knowledge about game theory, game technology before you jumped in the game pool at PCMA's Convening Leaders? I'm just wondering if planners really feel like they have to know about game strategy in order to go forward with the game.
I had attended some webinars and some sessions on gamification and read some articles on it, but this was definitely the first time I had created a game from conception to execution. So I don't know that planners need to, have a BA in game theory in order to do this, but they just really need to know their audience. We had a little extra pressure because we were deploying it to meeting professionals, and then we also decided to do a session on it during our conference, so that I think upped the concern behind how we were doing it. But I really don't think that there was you don't need to have a lot of game theory in order to do it.
So Faye, I'm asking you the same question. Did you have any prior knowledge, and if not, where did you get the knowledge in order to go forward? Was it mainly from the supplier of the game?
It's a really interesting question, because I think to some extent we almost wanted to overcomplicate this concept of gaming, which is really, when you think about it, it's a basic way of teaching even young children key concepts, things like sharing and turn taking and partnering. We had the most success when we started talking to folks internally in our development group who helped develop games, and also just looking around our community, at our families, looking to see what made people interested in playing. And so there was a little bit of game theory that we garnered from conversations with folks who helped develop games for our own internal programs. But a lot of it really came down to the basics. A game is something that's fun and that isn't too complicated, that's easy, and makes you want to come back and do more. So it kind of came down, we wanted to overcomplicate it, but at the end, I feel like we were most successful when we just kind of came down and said, what's going to make it fun and easy to access for those attendees?
So kind of staying with you, Faye, why a game? I mean, you touched on it a little bit just a few minutes ago, but why not some other way to, activate your attendees, even though they're kind of maybe familiar with game strategies? Why a game? Why not something else? Why not like a free giveaway of a, iPad to everyone?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, Pearson is an education company, and gamification is a huge trend in education in the sense that it really is an easy way to get kids, students, activated and motivated to learn concepts in a way that they don't even realize that they're learning. And that's a huge takeaway from gaming. It's fun to do, but you can learn a lot from it. It's a great way to transfer content knowledge from a teacher to a student or from student to student. And since it's a big trend in education now, it was important for us to make sure that our sales and marketing teams had kind of firsthand experience with that and how fun it can actually be. Because really, we wanted to give them the same experience that we're trying to give to our teachers and to the students that we serve.
Now, Mary, why did you guys go for a game? Had you just heard from planners? Was it some sort of bottom-up demand from your planner audience, or what drew you to a game?
I think that, obviously it's a big trend in events and conferences, so we knew that we had thought about doing it in June at our smaller event, but we wanted to spend a little bit more time and make sure that we perfected it for January. So we just knew we had to do it because people wanted it. But we also, the main reason we really did it was because we had very specific business objectives that we wanted to meet. So we thought that deploying the game would be the best way for us to do that.
We see that Leanne D'Amato's on the line, and I don't have this in my list of questions, but she's probably thinking about this. If you have an audience of, say, either non-technical people or people that you think wouldn't necessarily gravitate toward gameplay, do you think it's still an option, Mary?
I do. I would say that we have a very different kind of a group we have people who are students, so obviously they're younger and they're ready to do stuff and try new things. But we also have, we have senior level executives that have been in the business, and many of them still have BlackBerries and are scared to change to smartphones. So I think that we're seeing a trend where people are moving more to tablets and are getting more comfortable with it. And the easier, and as Faye was saying, the more fun you make it and the buzz you create around it, I think the more people are going to want to try it. Even if they're not the first initial adopters, by Tuesday, if their friends are doing it, they're going to want to try it. I'm sorry, because our event runs Monday through Wednesday, so the second day.
But Faye, when you and I were kind of talking, you brought up the point that know your audience. If you wanted to play a game and have a chance of it being successful, your group was kind of already familiar with it, but what Mary is saying kind of flies in the face of that a little bit. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting because we have a lot of folks who, as I mentioned previously, were not really tech savvy, and quite honestly, I think they probably approached the idea of gaming with a little bit of, maybe more than a little bit of cynicism. But what we found to be a really successful strategy was making sure that we had somebody on site who was there to kind of help promote it. He became our game guy. One of our VPs actually, he took it on to himself to kind of walk the room and really kind of promote this concept of gaming. We also made the very first challenge pretty easy. It was, if you check in, you get 5 points. If you check in here and find the secret scanner, you get 10 points. It was, we made it so the challenges were so easy and so fun that all of their reservations really kind of flew out the door by the end of the first day. And the other thing, too, is we had a pretty public way of showing how people were tracking. We actually posted up on a big jumbotron above the main general session room the leaderboard, so folks could see it changing pretty much periodically during the course of the day. They could see who the top 10 leaders were. So it was kind of an easy way to keep promoting it and showing people that, hey, if you play, your name is going to be up on that big screen. And since our audience was really sales and marketing folks, those sales folks are extremely competitive, and they love to see their names up on screen.
Yeah, no fistfights broke out, I hope.
We actually had a situation where we needed to almost disqualify someone for cheating.
Oh, boy.
They got pretty intense.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, Mary, let's talk about what you talked about at the meeting the wrap-up session. What were your specific objectives for the game and the platform that you selected? Maybe not the platform provider, but just, doing it on mobile. What were you hoping to achieve?
Well, I think our specific objectives, and we tried to stick very closely to these, like no matter what we decided to do, what activity we decided to include in the mobile app, we made sure that they were going to stick to these objectives. They were to make our networking easier because we have a larger event, 3,500 people, and it's a mixture of salespeople and planners. So we wanted to make sure that they could network with each other. And if it's a large event, they may not have the opportunity. So every time we tried to do something within the game, it was to meet that objective, or it was to find out what our people were doing at our event, where they were going, what sessions, where in our event they were actually going to. Because I don't know if at everybody's event that is listening to this, but at many events you have to get CEUs, and obviously we want to track that. But that's for our industry. They don't need them. So we wanted to be able to see where people were going so that we could take that information and we can use it to start personalizing their experience on our website with our communications and things like that. Some of the activities that we were trying to push people to do were to take a headshot and update their profile on our new website and our community so that we could get that information, to encourage them to visit some of our spaces with QR codes in different locations, to visit our partners and, exhibitors for people who have exhibitions. But we had a few other things. Those were our basic things were to make networking easier and to find out where people were.
Okay, Faye, what were your objectives for the game?
Well, it's interesting because, as I mentioned to you previously, Michelle, we actually had 2 different game strands. during our program. We had one that was mobile-based, and that had a lot of similarities to what Mary described. We had a lot of challenges that were based on checking in, using QR codes to different locations in the trade show floor, and also specific events and sessions. We also had some quiz questions tied to certain sessions that could get people extra badges or extra points. So there was that mobile app gaming strand. But knowing that really the ultimate test of whether or not folks are really engaged and are really kind of picking up the knowledge that we're trying to transfer to them during the meeting is to test them by making them do some kind of what we call in education performance-based assessment. So it's a sales meeting. So we set up a sales challenge for them called, we call it the elevator pitch challenge, which is the classic idea of the elevator pitch is if you were stuck with a key customer in an elevator for 10 flights, you have 45 to 60 seconds to sell them on a concept. So our big gaming challenge really was outside of a mobile application. It was an elevator pitch challenge. And we actually constructed a fake elevator in the hotel lobby. And we had a sign-up sheet where we asked people, okay, based on what you learned in the 3 biggest general sessions, we want you to deliver a 45 to 60-second elevator pitch and have it video recorded. And then we had folks vote on who the winner was, kind of American Idol style.
And
so,
Faye, can you share with us the gender of the person that won the mobile part of the challenge and the gender of the person that won the sales pitch? I thought
it was very interesting because the mobile app challenge was won by an extremely competitive female sales representative, but the elevator pitch challenge was won by a male. And it was interesting because there were more males interested in delivering their and being videotaped doing their 60-second sales presentation than female attendees. But there were more female attendees actually playing the mobile game itself. So I thought that was kind of an interesting metric.
Mary, did you break it down by gender, your gameplay at all?
No, not as of yet, but we did actually end up having 3 winners on the mobile, and it was 1 man and 2 women. And I can tell you the woman was very competitive
yeah.
on it, and I think that showed for us going what Faye was talking about before with that leaderboard. If they can see their name on there, they're going to be driven to do it. And it wasn't a salesperson. Tanya that I'm thinking of. She wasn't a salesperson. She was actually a planner. So I did think that was interesting.
So I'm kind of fascinated about what goes on behind the scenes. So, and Faye, you touched on it a little bit, I think. When you brought up the idea of having a game at this event, 1,200 sales reps, was there any, what was senior management thinking? What, they think you were kind of crazy or... what was the discussion?
It's interesting because the idea came from our senior management. And again, because they recognize that gaming is a trend in our industry and education. They wanted to find a hands-on way for our sales reps to actually put it into practice. So they actually just said, we need to do gaming at the sales meeting and figure out how to do it, Faye. So it was kind of the opposite of what you would...
Isn't that always the way? Make it so, number one.
Pretty much. But it was interesting because what we did was we pulled together folks from different parts of Pearson, but we also partnered with a group that was in the process of developing our mobile app. And that group had some pretty strong game folks on their team. So between some of the great brainstorming ideas that we came up with internally, and then looking to see how we can actually put it to practice by partnering with a development group, the mobile app development group, we came up with what I think was a pretty good strategy. We got very good reviews in the post-event surveys based specifically on the gaming component of the program.
Mm-hmm. Mary, did you have a similar experience?
Yes. our C-suite was eager to try it. We just had a few internal meetings between the meetings, marketing, and IT team, and we shared the concept, plan, and the purpose, and they reviewed it and okayed it. We also made sure that we could implement all of the activities with the provider, with the developer. So I do think that that's one takeaway that I had. Some of the limitations on technology didn't allow us to do things like post things to Facebook and get points for that because it wasn't something that was measurable within the app. So we had to sort of change some of our thinking in order to suit the technology. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that I learned that I thought was kind of important was we made sure to create sweeps rules with our attorneys to ensure that we were legally protected for people who could not participate in the game since there was a prize at stake.
Oh, interesting. So let's talk nuts and bolts. And rather than name specific costs, maybe just sort of relate it to, percentages of the budget. But give us an idea, Mary, of what a game like this would cost, the game of the type that you guys deployed.
Well, we were in a specific situation where we were utilizing our registration company, which is one of our partners, to create the mobile app and game. So it was sort of rolled into that expense. The only costs that we actually had to take care of were the prizes for the game, and those were charged to the meeting budget.
Oh, okay. What about you guys, Faye? Did you have out-of-pocket costs for, other than the prize, but just the game, maybe the game platform?
Well, we knew we wanted to develop a mobile app for the program anyway, so the extra enhancement of the game piece it really wasn't that much. I mean, I can say that our game piece was probably one of the most complex, or I don't want to say complex because we did try to make it easy, but we had a lot of challenges in terms of challenges in the sense of game challenges for our attendees. So because of the number of game challenges we set up, the price was higher. However, it was less than 50 cents an attendee. I mean, that's for the mobile app. Mm-hmm. So all in all, our gaming strategy, not including the cost of, including the cost of the prizes, was just over $1 per attendee.
Oh, good to know. So the internal budget, Mary, you just said it comes out of marketing, right? Marketing of convening leaders, marketing of the association.
It came out of the meeting budget for convening leaders.
Okay. What about you guys, Faye? Where does something like this come from? Also the meeting budget?
Yeah, there's actually we set up a specific budget for this internal meeting because it is the biggest one that we throw every year. But on the back end, what happens is it's one big lump sum beginning, but it does get charged back by the finance group to the individual participating divisions.
Great. I'm sorry, that phone is ringing in the background. Mary, describe the game. What did they have to do? How did it work? How did they win?
Well, it was a series of activities within the mobile app that we designed to meet our objectives. So each activity I created was done with the sole purpose of meeting the objective. We made sure that everyone could participate. For example, we wanted to encourage people to fulfill their mentor program duties, but not everybody was signed up for that, so we couldn't include that. And I mentioned earlier the Facebook limitation. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of, can we do this? No, you can't. Can we do this? It would require development. Okay, do the development, and we'll make sure it happens. And then we assigned points based on what we really wanted people to do, and those points were more weighted towards those things. The activities included earning points for scanning at the session, taking surveys on their experience at the session, QR codes scanned at places throughout the conference. Like we had networking areas at our receptions that were more designed for people to have more of an intimate experience. So we would put a QR code there to drive people to those areas. We also asked people to send messages within the app, and if they had met a certain threshold of messages sent, then they would get points. There were only 19 actions included in our game because we wanted to make sure that even those that were not tech savvy could definitely do it. And a takeaway I had was do more actions for the next event. Even if they are simple, give people more options.
What about you, Faye? other than the elevator pitch, how did the rest of it work? What did they have to do?
Well, for the mobile apps brand, real similar to what Mary described in the sense of getting badges or points for scanning in at the trade show floor, for attending certain sessions, for answering quiz questions that came up as a result of watching certain demos, things of that nature. We did make sure that we had a lot of different challenges for them in order to make sure that there was going to be a clear winner, because we were concerned that if there weren't enough challenges, that we would run into tie situations. So we wanted to make sure that we put in as many challenges as possible related to things that were related to the meeting itself, but we also wanted to throw some fun ones in there. So we gave people points if they went to the hotel gym, or if we called them the fun badges. So we called it the fitness freak badge if you went to the gym. There was a badge for going to the local Starbucks, for kind of just doing things around the hotel property that were outside of the program. And if it was actually because of some of those small kind of fun badges that we were able to derive a winner more easily, because when you think about it, all these folks are going to the same session. There were a lot of potential for ties, and at the end of the day, it was things like who actually went to the gym on the last day and who actually found the secret scanner on the last day that kind of resulted in the winner.
So I'm looking over the list of people listening, and I see Deb Webb's name. And when I think about the events that she is producing, there's quite a few more attendees typically. Mary, you've got 3,800 that come to Convening Leaders about. Faye, you said 1,200. Is the kind of games that you guys use, are there limitations in terms of the number of people that could play effectively without either driving you guys crazy or the platform crashing? I mean, is this something that could be used in a trade show with, say, thousands and thousands of attendees?
That's to me or to Faye. I'll just jump in. It's Mary.
Okay.
I think that you just have to be aware of the limitations. If you are using an app, make sure that you have free Wi-Fi. That would help people participate because, as you all know, in different convention centers, where you are is where your cell signal could be. So that I would look into and talk to your supplier about the bandwidth of it. But I mean, large groups are using these and they are being successful. I think you just have to stick to what your goals are for the game and make sure that you're talking to your provider about it.
Okay. So what were the actual metrics, Mary, that you reviewed after the event to figure out whether your game, moved the needle in the way that you wanted it to, made you think about whether you'd ever do this crazy thing again? What specifically did you look at?
Well, we're still doing it. I'm not going to lie. Our event just ended last Wednesday. But I do think that the game helps to encourage people to download the app. I'm really excited about that. Since our group, like I said earlier, BlackBerry is not a smartphone, so we're trying to encourage people to participate electronically versus with paper programs, things like that. We're trying to move the needle a little bit further to the app side of things. The metrics that we're reviewing are, how many people played, how many people scanned the QR code, who completed the surveys and scanned the sessions. We're making sure that the objectives that we set up at the beginning, that our game actually met those. And I'm learning. In some ways, it did not. Some ways it looks like we had some issues with some of our technology that didn't allow for people to submit surveys to the extent that we thought that they should. So, and that was one of our main objectives. So we're going to go back and review and see how we can make that better the next time.
And Faye, did you have specific metrics that you're now reviewing after the meeting?
Yep, there were some metrics that were tied to the mobile app gaming piece. So we were looking at, which, how many people played, when the peak scanning or the peak usage was, which was, at the end of the first day when we were doing our trade show. Actually, it was very clear that's when a lot of people were gaming because there were so many challenges that were embedded into the trade show floor. So we could see how many people played. We could see, during even down to the hour when the most people were playing, which challenges they decided to complete first, things of that nature. But I was really leaning heavily on the post-survey results, the survey that we sent out immediately after the program to see what people were saying about the gaming. And that's really where I think I got my best information, because that's when I was able to pick up information like Mary was saying about, I was on a BlackBerry and I had a hard time accessing X, Y, or Z, things that you wouldn't be able to pick up on if you were just looking at just the metrics. So some of that anecdotal feedback is starting to come in from surveys.
So that kind of leads to my next question about what the results were. So you mentioned in our little chatter before that your game was extremely successful. It was very well received. It seemed like it functioned very well. What can you say about the results?
Well, it depends on how you define results. I think the results of the game is it's pushed our program to a different level. I'll flat out say that. I mean, folks have actually said in the survey the game was awesome. Let's move it to another level next time. Would love to be able to do more Instagram. They started providing suggestions, and I think just the result on our end was that we know that our attendees liked it, and it's something that we're going to need to build on moving forward. Other things, it was very clear that people started recognizing that the elevator pitch challenge was a great way to really hone their sales skills and really test to see if they understood some of the content in those general sessions. So I think as a group, we found a lot of value in using the games, both from an engagement standpoint and also just being able to test, engage whether or not those sales reps actually got something out of the program.
Mary, I realize that your numbers are still coming in, but did you have any sort of initial feedback about the results? Do you have any, gut feelings or anecdotal information that came through about how it went?
Doing that session on Wednesday at the close of our event, I think really gave us a lot of anecdotal information that we're learning from. So, we had some issues with technology that we're going to make sure that don't happen again, and that's what I would recommend to everybody is test, over test, and test again. Make sure that it works on all platforms, things like that. But I really think I was sort of surprised at the level of people that decided to play the game. I didn't expect our group who had, a lot of them are older. And, being somebody, I'm not Gen Y, I think I'm Gen X, technically. So for me, I would play a game and it wouldn't be a big deal. But for somebody that's, in their 50s or 60s to be playing a game, I was surprised that they were actually taking that on. So I know that people want it. I know that we're going to do it again, and we're going to make it better. We're going to make sure that, people have as many activities as they want to play the game. And if the thing that I took from it is if we have most of the people who are playing the game actually scanning the QR codes, which I thought was going to be the hardest part to get people involved in, then they are ready to do whatever we ask them to do.
They probably do anyway, Mary. We have such a loyal following of fanboys and girls.
We try.
Yeah. So, Mary, after your experience, and maybe I just want to ask you this on a personal level, what did you learn about using games at events? I understand how you need to, understand the game experience at an organizational level, but I'm wondering if you personally, professionally, what you learned about this.
I think personally, I learned that this is something that everyone should be doing because it really does increase the engagement of people. I think it brings people to a different level of customer service with your meeting where they feel like they're active part of the event. So, and I could see that working for, an internal meeting or an external meeting where if they feel like they're participating even more than just attending, I think that it's really going to increase loyalty and repeat attendance. So, and if it's internal, obviously it's going to engage them more with the company. So I really think that a game, no matter how exciting it is, like if you go all the way crazy and you're doing, you know, like a scavenger hunt and all sorts of weird obstacles and all of that, to just if you're asking people to do the basic, you know, scanning and performing easy activities, I think anything will actually make your attendees feel like they are a part of your meeting rather than just attending it.
But do you ever have the fear that if you get a really good game going and everyone's participating in the game, that they'll ignore your conference programming? Or
no.
won't show up to, you know, the keynote?
No, I think the thing that, I mean, what we would do is we would make sure that whatever our game is that it met our business objectives, and we would make sure that we would never be like, hey, go to this party instead of go to the general session. So I think you have to drive the experience for the game to ensure that they're not going to go, you know, rogue on you. But I really think that it's I should just back it up and say your attendees, whether they're internal or it's you know, they're paying to attend, they are going to do what they're going to do at your conference anyway, and you might as well find out what it is that they're doing and try and slightly improve or drive their experience in a different direction. And a game, I thought, was a really, really good way to do it. That
said, probably the game about see how many tequila shots you can do should probably be off the program.
No, if it goes against our morals clause, probably not going to happen.
Some liability there. Faye, what about you? What did you learn about using games? How do you feel about the experience?
You know, I thought it was a fantastic experience. It taught me a couple of things. First and foremost, I don't think I gave our teams enough credit for playing. I mean, I thought, okay, this is our first time doing this. A lot of these folks aren't very tech savvy. Granted, we've got some pretty good carrots hanging at the end of this stick that I think will motivate them to maybe take a second look at it. But I think I underestimated how competitive they could get in terms of learning how, just the talking amongst themselves and seeing somebody else's name on that leaderboard, and then seeing at the end of the day on our e-newsletter, we posted who the high scorers were every day. We underestimated how much fun people would find the gaming to be. But what was interesting is that very same CMO who said, okay, we're going to do gaming, make it happen. A few weeks before the conference, he said, but you're going to make it happen so it doesn't take away from the meeting, right? I mean, people are not going to be so busy playing games.
Now he tells you.
Well, right, and I said, you know, that was a really interesting point, because the intent of the game is to enhance the experience, not to supplant the experience or to make people go rogue, like Mary was saying. I think it's really important to, as you mentioned, make sure it aligns with the business objectives, and it is something that's really not an add-on to the program, but it's actually embedded and integrated into the overall thing. It can't just be kind of a fun little element to tack on at the end. It really needs to be a very, very deep part of the mix.
So, but do you feel now, after what you've been through, you feel like a personal mandate to evangelize gamification throughout your organization in terms of other groups doing events and things like that? Was it that good of an experience for you?
Yes, but I wouldn't say that's exclusive to gaming. I mean, I guess I would be an evangelist for anything that I think is going to kick up the experience level of our attendees. Gaming right now is one of those elements. If there's going to be something else next year or 2 years from now that's also going to enhance that experience once they come on site, and even after the event experience, I'd be an advocate for that. Right now it's gaming. I do think it's an important and really fun and interesting strand, but only because it enhances that overall experience.
So these to my final questions before we take some questions from the audience, and there are plenty lined up here. Mary, after you review everything and you sort of take a deep breath and look back, what do you think, you know, knowing what you know now, that you'll do differently going forward with gamification? Different game, no game, same game, tweaked?
I think we're going to do a game. I think that we found that it helps engagement. I think that what Faye was saying just now is completely correct. Anything that can up the experience is what we are all about. So we're definitely going to do it. But I think, one of the really like no-brainer takeaways that I was like, really? That's the problem? Was that people didn't know their username and password in order to get into it. And I thought that would be the easiest thing, and I got a lot of like, wait, how do I get into it? And that shouldn't be a stopping point. So I guess what I would recommend to people is to really look at how people are going to interact with it and make sure that your participants know even those no-brainer things like their username and password. I think that I would set it up so that people could submit problems to me on site so that I can fix them. They were going to the provider and were talking to the provider about them, but I didn't know about them. And I think when the person who's managing the product internally knows about what's going on, they can better manage the expectations of people who are playing, as well as make sure that the technology provider are really staying on top of things. But for sure, next year and even in June when we have our education conference, which is a smaller 600-person event, we're going to push more innovation. We're going to try different stuff that's going to help us, broadcast the meeting beyond the on-site experience, hopefully include some social stuff. I really think that now that we've tried it and we've gotten our feet wet, that we're just at the very tip of what we can be doing.
So, Faye, will there be a second annual elevator pitch contest?
Well, I can tell you, I'm keeping the elevator. They were thinking that they were going to need to get rid of it. I said, no, I think that thing is a keeper. So there's going to be a version 2 of that, definitely. But, again, like Mary said, this was our first time trying anything like this out. So we definitely are looking forward to version 2 of elevator pitch, version 2 of mobile gaming, because I think we learned a lot, but I also know that there were things definitely we could do better in terms of preparing our attendees up front so that we weren't doing as much of that on-site training right after they registered. So there's a lot more we can do to pre-promote, I think, and get people excited before they even get to the conference.
Great. So we now come to the where we have not prepared portion of the discussion, and I'm going to take some questions from the audience. So I've got one here from Bob McGrath. And Mary, I'm going to put this to you first. Can you define whether your use of games was independent of technology or required it? So let me rephrase that. You had certain objectives. One of them was filling out evaluations after the presentation, things like that. All things being equal, do you think you really needed a game layer and technology to do that? Could you have done something differently with that or any other aspect?
Of course, you don't necessarily have to have a game in order to get some of your objectives met, but we weren't getting them met at the volume at which we wanted them to be met. So I think that really doing the game helped bring more awareness to our app, which we wanted people to be going to anyway. Some of our sessions weren't even on our printed program. They were things that we developed a little bit later than we could have put into our printed program. So we needed people to download the app, know where to go for some of our smaller, 15-minute bite-sized sessions. So really, yes, nobody needs to try new technologies or anything like that, but I would strongly resist not doing it just because I think you get more engagement from your attendees in the more ways that you decide to engage them. A few years ago, nobody knew what social media was, and now people can't live without it. We didn't have smartphones, I don't even know, 4 years ago, and now, I'm obsessed with it. I'm paying for things with my phone. So I think the more you I think you have to do it now.
So, Faye, you had these two strands you mentioned. One was having nothing to do with technology, relatively, and the other one was using a mobile platform. Did either resonate, one more than the other, maybe to the winners, the guy who won the sales pitch and the woman who won the mobile portion, but do you think you could have pulled off game strategy without any kind of technology?
Absolutely. We could have pulled it off, but it would have been much more difficult. I mean, I can tell you one of the motivators for even doing the elevator pitch was you got 25 points right off the bat in the mobile gaming. So the two were intertwined to some extent. So in terms of the elevator pitch, for instance, we could have done that without it lived without the technology in terms of, folks recording, videotaping their pitch. However, getting folks to vote on who they thought the winner was very, very technology reliant. If we didn't have an easy way to be able to capture everybody's votes and it was within a 1 hour period, 1,200 people voting within an hour without the technology, it would have been really challenging trying to even just tabulate a winner, I think.
And Michelle, could I just jump in and say that I think that to what Bob was talking about, the game actually increased people's ability to connect with each other.
Yes.
One of the winners was telling me about how she had her friends helping her hunt down some of the QR codes that she needed to scan. So
that would be me. I would just get my posse together. Let's go, ladies.
Exactly. So I really
Here's
think
the mission.
I don't think that they got caught up in the technology, but I think that it helped them connect even further with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, Mary? I think, too, even just the use of technology to remind people about the game, even if you're not using it to capture points or to vote, just being able to blast alerts out saying, the elevator doors are open. You have 2 more hours left before you can throw your final pitch. Even just using it as technology just to communicate about the gaming is another use of it. I mean, I don't think you can get around doing gaming successfully and quickly with a large group unless you use technology at some level.
Faye, did you feel at all that perhaps the non-technical strand appealed more to the extroverts, while the technical mobile part maybe appealed more to introverts, or that's just how it ended up? Is that crazy? Yeah.
It's a really interesting question because I think, again, I know that some of those folks did the elevator pitch just in order to gain points for the other gaming strand. Mm-hmm. So I think they thought of the two of them together, but they also did recognize that the elevator pitch was the big challenge. It is the ultimate sales challenge. Can you sell in 60 seconds? Sell an idea, sell yourself in 60 seconds. I think that the folks that are willing, that are quote unquote are game to do it, are really going to be your top performers anyway. So it was interesting that to me, when I saw who the finalists were, I could have almost named them because they are some of the stronger salespeople. So I think some of the strongest salespeople tended to gravitate towards that, whereas some of the folks that just wanted to be able to win by doing many, many, many little activities they also found something in the game. So it kind of appealed to two different attendee types, the folks that like gathering along the way and folks that are just going to go for the home run.
Mm-hmm. So, Mary, Laura Coffey is asking, she says the main demographic for one of our events are 40 to 60-year-old men. What options besides mobile might be a good fit to incorporate gaming? Do you think about anything other than mobile when you were thinking about a game?
Honestly...
And it's funny to ask you because I think most of the attendees are women.
Exactly.
Amazing convening leaders, but, it's interesting.
When we were talking about a game, we did immediately think mobile, just because it's the easiest way to track and, all of those things. And it just seems like it's the easiest thing for planners to be able to incorporate into their events. But, it didn't even cross, honestly, my mind that we could have done something like what Faye had done, which was, the elevator pitch, because we were concentrating so much on making sure that the actions were easily trackable rather than, how do I say this? Making sure that people weren't pretending to do something or that there was a lot of, on our side, of double-checking and making sure that they were actually participating in the event that they said that they were participating in. It was just easier for us to do the game. But, 40 to 60-year-old men, mean, that's tricky. I mean, not to be stereotypical, but I would probably put in a lot more events that had to do with, we had a golfing thing on site. I probably would have said, scan the QR code while you're golfing, something like that, because I know younger men are more prone to doing QR codes. But, I mean, I would have tried to understand what the attendees were and pick out what kind of activities they might be more prone to do.
Faye, did you think about age groups when you thought of that non-mobile component, or you thought more about what your specific demographic of your group was?
It's a really interesting question. We didn't look at it in terms of, age group, but we definitely looked at them as just sales groups, sales people in general. What are their hot buttons? What do they really like to do? What's going to get them excited about what could potentially come off to them as just another thing they have to do once they get there? So what's going to make it really fun? And what was really effective on our end was the folks that we had involved in the brainstorming committee. I mean, we made sure we had folks from senior sales leadership down to some of our newest reps, to some of the reps that have been around for 20 years, and they really helped validate some of the ideas that we came up with in brainstorm. I mean, I could call up any one of them and during meetings just say, what do you think? Do you think the sales reps would do this, or do you think that would be too much for them by day 2? So we kind of had our own focus testing committee of folks that could shoot holes through the ideas, and we made sure that there was pretty good representation within that committee, so that when we went out there with our first gaming strategy, it wasn't coming out of left field. We kind of knew that it had legs.
Mm-hmm. So I've got a staffing question, Mary. Leanne D'Amato is asking how many people were needed to monitor and run the game.
We just had the reps on site that were there for registration, and they were helping with any questions that people had. But really, people just sent questions to me and to Joanna, one of our membership people. So and those were mostly login questions. It really didn't take a lot of our time with the simplicity of the game that was set up. It did take a lot of our time to manage it, and I would recommend, if you are, and actually I should say I was also doing the hybrid event during that. So I mean, it got about 5-10% of my staff time, to really make sure that things were going well. But I really don't think if you set it up in a way that's sort of turnkey in a way, you don't have to have staff fully dedicated to it. Now, if you had something like Faye was talking about, that is a bit more. You would need more staff. You would need somebody to make sure that things were happening with the elevator. That takes a little bit more time. So, but the simpler it is, the more turnkey it is, I don't think you need as much staff as you would think.
So, Faye, what kind of internal marketing did you do to make people aware and excited to take part in the game?
If I had it to do over again, I definitely would try to promote the game further in advance of when people actually arrived on site. So most of our marketing really involved setting up a station right at registration and because we were talking about earning badges, one of our sales VPs put on an Eagle Scout uniform, and we put badges that represented all the different badges that people could win during the course of the program all over his shirt, and he essentially sold it for us. So the marketing really involved having somebody like that, representing the game, the face of the game on site, making sure that people had downloaded the app correctly right at registration, and making sure that we walked them through the first challenge. I mean, right when they got to the opening reception, their first challenge is check into the opening reception. So it was a lot of the marketing really happened on site for us. If I had it to do over again, I definitely would start it beforehand and start setting up small challenges so they get excited. And as soon as they get on site, there's already a leaderboard going with names on it. So I think that there could be. I know one of my takeaways is doing a little better on the pre-marketing of the gaming next time around.
So I've got time for one more question from Tracy Brown. did either of you, Mary, survey those that didn't play the game and find out why they didn't?
No, but I really wish that I had. I wish that Tracy would have asked that before we did our evaluation
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, because that's a brilliant question, and it's something that I'm probably going to try and crowdsource the answer to. Because I mean, I think some people, when I asked people during our gamification session on site, did you play the game? Did you not play the game? And then I was asking the people that had played the game, what kind of game would you play? Would you do a scavenger hunt? Would you do this? Would you do that? The people who played the game were like, yes, I'd try that. I'd try that. I'd try that. They were on board with anything. And those that weren't going to play, it kind of seemed like they may never have gotten involved. So, I mean, just like when we do our hybrid event, we're not doing it for everyone who could attend our meeting. We're doing it for the portion of our group that really wants to be engaged in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings us to the end of an absolutely lovely hour talking about games and events. I want to take this opportunity to thank OnStream for being a sponsor today. I think it's been a great discussion. If anyone in the audience still has a question, you can forward it to, we have our emails in the slide deck. Forward it to me or either one of the speakers. There were a couple questions we didn't have a chance to get to, but wanted to respect our speakers' times. And again, thank you so much, OnStream, for being a sponsor today, and thank you, Mary and Faye, for being our panelists. Have a great day.